Hello and welcome to this tutorial on using the Parametric EQ to sweeten audio. Now for me, the Parametric EQ is my tool of choice for sweetening audio because very quickly you can get in and visually move points around and hear the changes that are being made as you move those points around. Now I'm going to be showing different workflows because there's a different workflow for Adobe CS5.5 and Audition than there is for Adobe CS4, CS5 and Soundbooth. And I ought to say also that the tool, the actual effect, is available in Premiere Pro if you don't have any of those. However, it is far less powerful. You can apply the effect either to a clip or to a track in Premiere Pro, but you won't be able to have access to all the points that you have access to in either Soundbooth with CS4 and CS5 or Audition with CS5.5. I'll show you where it is, but I'm not going to demonstrate it particularly in Premiere Pro, so this is really a Creative Suite solution rather than just a solution in Premiere Pro. However, once you know where it is in Premiere Pro and you've watched the tutorial, you will be able to work out how to use it and roughly how it works. The other thing to say is I'm going to do this in two parts. I'm going to start off with the CS5.5 workflow, and then halfway through the tutorial I'm going to put up a new title screen just saying workflow for CS4 and CS5. So if you don't have CS5.5 but you'd like to use this effect in CS4 and CS5, then scroll through this tutorial, find the bit that says CS4 and 5 and watch it from there. Okay, so where do I find the effect? Simple. For clips, it's over here in the Effects tab. Click in the Effects tab, go to Audio Effects, and you'll see you've got something under there which is called Parametric EQ, which for some reason I keep on wanting to call Panoramic EQ, but it's Parametric EQ. Grab it and drop it on the audio, and then you can go to your Effects Controls, and you can open up Parametric EQ, and you've got some bits and pieces which at the moment aren't going to make a lot of sense to you. I'll explain those a bit later on when we actually come to do it in a different process. Now that's how you can apply it to a clip and to a track in Premiere Pro. You go to Audio Mixer and then you click this little drop down here, this little twirly for showing and hiding effects, and you've got this little drop down arrow in the effects section, and all the way down there you've got Parametric EQ, and unfortunately it's even harder to edit because you've got one button for the frequency, and to get to the other buttons you have to go down for Q and for boost, and it's a lot harder to apply. So I'm just going to put this to none, and I'm going to go back to my effects control, and I'm going to select Parametric EQ and get rid of it, delete. You can apply it that way, but the best way of applying it is actually if you've got the Creative Suite in Adobe Audition or, as we'll see later on, Adobe Soundbooth. So this is the workflow for Adobe Audition, and this is how it works. You select the audio in your timeline, you right click on it, and you go down to Edit Clip in Audition. Click on that and it renders and replaces the clip. Now what do I mean by that? A new clip is created in your project panel over here, which if I move this across is called Audio Extracted. And that extracted audio is what we will be working on. We won't be working on the original audio, so it's still there safe and untouched. We'll be working on a file which is just a copy of the original, so that if we really muck it up we can always get back to the original. Anyway, it renders and it replaces it and it opens it in Adobe Audition, and here it is in Adobe Audition. Now I'm just going to play a few bits of it here, so just click here and hit the spacebar to play.
Harmless. Toys like this give kids funny ideas, make them think it's fine to go sticking.
Okay, so that's the clip that we've got, that's the audio brought out. Now the best solution is always to get your audio right at source, but sometimes you don't have the choice. Sometimes you're not responsible for actually recording the audio, and occasionally it's a microphone problem. The microphone's in the wrong place, or it just sounds too thin and too weedy, and you just want to make it sound an awful lot better. So how do we apply the Parametric EQ, and how does it work? Well, you can either get to the effects up here in Effects, and then you can go down to Filter and EQ, and you've got Parametric EQ. I'm sorry if I keep on calling it the Panoramic EQ, it is Parametric EQ. Or alternatively, you've got a little drop down over here which you can click, and you can also get to the same thing, Filters and EQ, Parametric EQ, click on that. And it immediately comes up with this somewhat daunting box. Don't be daunted by it, it's incredibly powerful and really useful. It comes by default as a flat line, and you can start playing your clip just by hitting the spacebar, and then you play with these little dots. Now what are these little dots? These little dots represent frequency ranges. Now you can turn them on and off by hitting the little buttons underneath it. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, low and high. These are shelves. These are called shelves, the H and the L. And the idea is you can pull that down and you can sort of cut off low frequencies. And you can pull this one down and cut off high frequencies. So it's great for getting rid of hiss. You can physically shift them and move them around. If you've got a hissy shot, you could pull that down. And then you can turn around and say, but hang on a second, that's got rid of the hiss, but it's also deadened out the high frequency of my shot. Well look, number 5 is for high frequency, so I can pull that up. And I've boosted a whole series of frequencies in the high frequency range. Now if you pull this up, the louder the audio is going to be. If you pull it down, the lower the audio is going to be. So basically I'm increasing and decreasing a selection of frequencies. Not the whole track, but a selection of frequencies. And I've increased the selection of high-end frequencies. So this is going to be the sibilant high-end stuff. At the same time, I've also got rid of noise. Now at the low end, I could pull down bass if I've got rumble or problems with low-end frequencies. You can see this is only 30 or 40 hertz. Or I can increase them if I think that's going to work. But at the same time, I've got independent control of my bass frequencies, which I can pull up and pull down. Now, you've got some controls down here, one of which is called Q or width, and the width is basically the number of frequencies that you are going to affect. At the moment it's set by default at 2, if I start to pull it out, you'll see that as I pull it up, I am narrowing up here the number of frequencies that I am affecting. I can pull them right up and make them pinpoint so that I've got a real close range of frequencies. Now, this could be brilliant, say, for getting rid of 60 Hz or 50 Hz hum. If you've got 50 or 60 Hz, you can actually click and type in there, so say 50, hit return, so that's now specifically at 50 Hz. At the moment it's boosted, the gain is going upwards. If I want to get rid of it, I can pull it the other way, and my 50 Hz would start to disappear. So that's how you can use it to get rid of a specific frequency, and if you want it to be very narrow, or alternatively, you can make it hugely wide. Now by default it's at 2, but if I start to pull it lower than 2, you'll see that the line goes out and it starts to give me a gentle curve rather than a particularly sort of tight point. It all depends what you want to achieve with your sound. Anyway, how does this affect my sound? At the moment I'm going to reset. I'm just going to go back to default. That's reset, and I'm going to hit play, and then I'm going to start pulling these frequencies around so you can hear the difference. The only caveat I have to say is because of the recording system I'm working on, I can't actually hear what I'm doing, but I do know what usually sounds fairly good because there is, I think, a pretty normal curve for how this should look. Anyway, I'm going to hit the spacebar, play, and when I click this button, I'm going to be turning it on and turning it off. Okay, so now I'm going to hit the spacebar to push play, and I'm going to start moving my frequencies around. Okay, play.
Harmless. Toys like this give kids funny ideas, make them think it's fine to go sticking knives in things.
Oh, don't be such a stick in the mud. I played with all sorts as a youngster. Never did me any harm.
Look at today's paper. Boy, 14 dies in knife fight. 1 minute they're running round the playground playing pirates. Next thing, they're joining gangs and wearing these hoochie flips.
Hoodies. Hoodies.
As you can see, by moving these points around, you can really change how something sounds tremendously to make it sound a lot better. Now, from recollection, as I say, I can't hear what I'm listening for, that's the kind of curve that often sounds pretty good. I think the bass might be a little bit high, and then maybe you want to boost the high frequencies to give a better sibilance response which people can hear. That's the high frequency S's and T's so that the speaker sounds a lot clearer. And if you start to move 1 and perhaps 2 a little bit, what you do is give a bit more depth to the voice. So I'm giving depth to the voice by moving these up, and I'm adding some high frequency bits and pieces in to make it that much more clear and easy to understand. I generally find that if you move 3 up or down much at all, you either thin it out or bottle it down. You can make quite a huge difference by moving this around. Now, this is for sweetening the audio. Do bear in mind, of course, that you can actually create all kinds of different sounds. You can make it sound like you're in a telephone booth, or you can make it sound like you're speaking on a stage, or you can make like you're speaking into a giant tin, if you like, just by pulling these frequencies up and down. Now, if I push play again, you'll see that at times what will happen is the bars will boost into the red over here and over here. So we also have a gain control, because what we do is we're pulling gain up as we pull this up. which means that if the audio is quite loud, it might distort. So what we can do is pull the overall gain of the whole thing down with this slider here. Now, it's not that sensitive, so I actually quite often prefer to just pull and grab this particular slider, just this hot text down below, and let's say take it down to -7 dB, and then hit play.
Same age as your Brittany.
If only all teenagers could be as sweet-natured as...
We might find actually we didn't need to do that, so I could take this back up to 0, or even boost it a little bit. As I say, it's easy actually to click and drag here. So that's now 3 dB boosted overall. Hit the spacebar to play.
As my grandchildren, thank heavens they'll never get mixed.
Okay, don't worry too much about getting the volumes right. The important thing is you're not distorting. You're not going to the red over here or over here. Because once you've actually got a really nice sound from this parametric equalizer, once you've got a nice sound from it and it actually sounds rich and it sounds warm and clear, then you can just shut it off. And then the other thing that I would apply, I've done another tutorial on this. In my second slot, I would actually choose for this particular one, if I go to amplitude and compensation, speech volume leveler, and I would probably choose a default soft, and then X that off. And now if I hit play, watch these levels over here.
Stop in any of this awful business of flybys and drive-throughs.
Well, that's just the thing though, isn't it? You never know what's going on in their heads.
Okay, you can see that actually the levels are far better. Now once I'm happy with all of that and I'm happy with the sound, if I want to go back and change it, I can simply double click here and reopens the box, and I can go in and make all kinds of changes. So it's completely editable. Once you've finished, you click this button that says apply. If I click that, now it has been applied to the clip, and all I need to do now is save it. Go file, save. It's already got a name. And then if I go back to Premiere Pro, you'll see that down here the audio has been updated, and when I push play I get the same thing.
Make them think it's fine to go sticking knives in things.
Oh, don't be such a stick in the mud.
So that's how you can use the parametric EQ in Premiere Pro and Audition. Now very briefly, if you want to use it actually in Premiere Pro, if I click and apply it to the sound clip here and open it up, you'll see that we've got bypass, which is for turning it on and off, center, Q and boost. Boost is how much you raise the gain or lower the gain by. Center is what frequency are you working on. So if you think about those points 1 to 5, it's basically one of those points. And then Q is how wide. So I've got a frequency range here, and it's pretty wide. You can make it wider, you can make it narrower. Sometimes these things seem to work in the opposite way, whether you do it in Premiere Pro or whether you do it in Audition. But you can fiddle around with this either to make it a wider frequency range or a very specific and narrow frequency range, and then you can boost it or you can turn it down depending on what you want to do. But as you can see, I don't think that's anything like as powerful as it is if you use it in Audition. Okay, so now let's show you the workflow for CS5 and CS4. Okay, I'm now opening up Premiere Pro CS5, and I'm going to apply the parametric EQ through Sound Booth. So you right click on the waveform and you go to Edit in Adobe Sound Booth, Render and Replace. And what has happened now is Premiere Pro has produced a new file. If I open this up, you'll see it's called Extracted, the same name but extracted. It's created a copy of the audio of the original, and it's the copy that we're going to be working on. We are not going to be working on the original audio file, we're going to be working on the copy, so that the original is safe in case of problems later on. And then it's extracted that and it opened it up, as you could see, in Adobe Sound Booth, and this is our audio file. So you can just click, hit spacebar and play.
Toy these days.
Oh, it's harmless enough.
Right, so now we're ready to apply the parametric EQ. How do we do that? Well, we can either go to Effects, and then you could apply one here that says EQ Parametric, but this is not the one you want to apply, because if you apply it and then either click on the word Settings or double click on the effect itself, you end up with a single slider, which is no good to man or beast. That's not what you want to apply. So click that, select it in the actual effects rack down here and delete. The alternative is Effects, Advanced, EQ Parametric. The other place to find it, by the way, is down here where it says the little FX. Click on that, Advanced, and you can have any of them there, but there you go, EQ parametric. So that's where else you could apply it. Now they have got some presets that you can use if you want. So you can choose any of these to get a different kind of response. So if you want something that sounds like phone, or somebody's very sibilant, it's very SE and noisy and wet sounding, you can use that to get rid of it. But I'm going to use the flat version and show you how you can change it to sweeten your audio. So to open up the settings, you double click, and then you end up with this interface. And again, if you don't know what you're looking at, it can be quite frightening. Let me explain. These points are points on a frequency line. So you can see here we've got 0 Hertz all the way up to 20,000 Hertz. The human ear at its best can hear from 20 Hertz to 20,000 Hertz. Truth is, by the time you get to my age, 16,000 is about the best you're going to do, which is roughly where this one is here. In fact, that's nearer 10,000. So what we're going to be doing is taking these points, and we're either going to move them up to increase their volume, this is decibels, or we're going to move them down to decrease their volume. The idea being that we can boost individual frequency ranges. So we've got some low frequency ranges, some mid frequency ranges, and some high frequency ranges. And by moving up and down one of these points, we're affecting a selected range of frequencies and making that particular range sound better, which can make the overall sound of the voice to us sound far better. You've also got things here called low pass enable and high pass enable. Now to me these are back to front, because if I click high pass enable, for some reason it's down here in the low frequency range, and of course I think high pass should be high frequency. Likewise low pass I think should be low frequency, but you can clearly see this is high frequency. These points are for cutting off hiss and rumble. So if you've got rumble, wind noise, road noise, you can actually use this to get rid of the rumble. And if you've got hiss on your tape, you can use this point to get rid of the hiss. Now then you can grab hold of these points and move them along the line, and these other points you can physically shift up and physically shift down, boosting the frequency, shutting the frequency down. Now if I move this one around, so I've boosted the gain, so we can see this is 0.4, and I've made the gain go up. I can actually click and move it here as well if I like. The actual frequency it's at is set here, and I can, if I want, shift that frequency around. However, I've also got something here called the Q, and Q is about how narrow that frequency range is. So if I pull it right up high, I've got a very, very specific narrow range that's being affected that I can boost, or if I want, I can get rid of, just to be able to show that I can get rid of a particular frequency that's causing me problems. But for this example, I actually want to move it the other way. We want to move it so it's nice and wide, affecting quite a lot of the actual frequency range, because we want to affect a whole range of frequencies, not one particular one. Now if I move this back down here and I hit the space bar so you can hear how it sounds, then I'm going to move these around to show you the difference it makes by moving these points up and down. Unfortunately, with my recording setup I can't actually hear what I'm doing, so I'm going to be doing my best remembering roughly what is a good sound. So hit spacebar and play, and then move the points.
Toys like this give kids funny ideas, make them think it's fine to go sticking knives in things.
Oh, don't be such a stick in the mud. I played with all sorts as a youngster. Never did me any harm.
Look at today's paper. Boy, 14 dies in knife fight. 1 minute they're running round the playground playing...
Now, if I just hit the X button to get rid of it, it's still applied over here, and I can turn off the individual effect or all the effects of this green light here. So if I push play and then turn them on and off, you'll hear the difference I've made.
Pirates. Next thing, they're joining gangs and wearing these hoogie flips.
Hoodies.
What?
Hoodies.
That's what I said.
Thank heavens they'll never get mixed up in any of this awful
Okay,
business of...
so that's how we can apply the parametric EQ and make our audio sound so much better. Once you've done that in Adobe Sound Booth and you're happy with the end results, what you can do is you can click Apply to File, and it redoes the file showing how it's been affected. Now there is a problem in that it's not loud enough. What you can do is you could double click it and you could start to play with the volume here and start to move it to increase it or decrease it. The other alternative is there's a little button down here which says equalize volume levels, and if you click the equalize volume levels, it's going to take the whole thing and balance it far better. And as you can see from that waveform, nothing has gone into distortion and everything's been balanced and the whole thing is much louder. So let's just play from here.
Running round the playground playing pirates. Next thing, they're joining gangs and wearing these hoochie flips.
So that's how you can actually use Adobe Sound Booth to achieve a similar result as we saw earlier with CS5.5 with Adobe Audition. Now in case you just fast forwarded to this part to see CS4 and CS5 workflow, you can apply the parametric EQ in Premiere Pro. I'm going to show you how to do that. You can either do it on a clip or you can do it on the whole track. If I show you very quickly on the clip, go to the Effects tab, Audio Effects, open up, now this happens to be stereo, so it can open up stereo, and go down to Parametric EQ, click, drag, drop it on, and then open up my effects control, and here it is, Parametric EQ, open up. Now notice that I have got 1 point. I haven't got the 4 or the 5 points that there were before. I've got 1 point that I can affect, that I can boost or I can turn down, and here's the cue for making it wider or narrower. However, sometimes these things seem to work in the opposite direction to the way that they work, say, in Sound Booth. So play around with the actual cue. You might be making it narrower if you go in the opposite way to the way that it works in Sound Booth. So do play around with this. You'll be able to hear whether you're making it very narrow or whether you're affecting a whole range just by sliding this along. But you can see Parametric EQ, I'm only affecting 1 point. I can, of course, click and grab and drop another one on there and affect another point. And I can change the frequency range, say, down to 100 Hertz or whatever. So you can affect multiple ones by doing it this way, but obviously that's far less efficient than doing it with Audition or Sound Booth. Lastly, of course, you can apply it with the audio mixer. Open up little twirly here. You've got 5 slots. Open them up. Parametric EQ, click on that. It's even harder to get to everything because you start off with the frequency range and then you have to change the Q and the boost down here 1 point at a time. But of course the advantage of that is it affects every clip that's on your track. So it's not just clip based, it's the whole track base, and of course you can apply it multiple times to affect different frequency ranges. So that's how you can apply the parametric EQ. I apologize if I called it the wrong thing a few times. I hope you found this tutorial useful. Do use this tool. It is for me my tool of choice for making audio sound a lot sweeter with hardly any work at all. My name's Andrew Davis. Thank you for watching.